You don't lose her when you walk away. You lose her when you become too easy to understand, too available, too predictable. And the moment you disappear into mystery, that's when her mind starts chasing you. Most men think attraction is built by doing more texting, more explaining, more proving. But what they don't realize is that attraction doesn't grow in certainty, it grows in curiosity. The more she feels like she has you completely figured out, the less emotional stimulation she gets from you. There's no challenge, no intrigue, no reason for her mind to wander back to you. You become familiar, and familiarity without mystery slowly kills attraction. But the moment you step back, something powerful happens. You stop giving her constant access to your thoughts, your feelings, your time. You no longer react instantly. You're no longer trying to control how she sees you. And in that space, you become unknown again. That's where her imagination starts to work. She begins to wonder, what is he doing? Why isn't he reaching out? Has he moved on? Is there someone else? And those questions create emotional movement inside her that your words never could. Mystery isn't about playing games, it's about having a life that doesn't revolve around her. When you're busy building yourself, your purpose, your goals, your mindset, you naturally become less available, not because you're trying to manipulate her, but because your world is bigger than just her attention. And that's what makes you attractive. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer easy to read. You're someone she has to figure out again. And here's the truth most people miss: people don't value what they fully understand and can easily control. They value what feels slightly out of reach. When she can't fully grasp you, she leans in. When she doesn't know what you're thinking, she starts thinking about you. When you're not constantly there, your absence starts to speak louder than your presence ever did. So instead of trying to impress her with words, you let your silence create questions. Instead of chasing, you give her space to come toward you. And instead of explaining yourself, you let her curiosity build her own version of you in her mind. And that version is often far more powerful than anything you could say. Because at the end of the day, attraction isn't about being seen all the time, it's about being felt even when you're not there. The biggest mistake most men make is they think attention is what keeps attraction alive, when in reality, too much attention given too freely is what slowly destroys it. When you're always there, always replying instantly, always available no matter what, there's no tension, no anticipation, no emotional buildup. And without that, her feelings don't grow, they fade. Think about it. Human nature doesn't get excited over what's guaranteed. It gets excited over what feels earned, what feels uncertain, what feels like it could be lost. When she knows she has you no matter how she behaves, when she knows you'll always respond, always chase, always stay, there's no emotional risk for her. And without risk, there's no investment. But the moment you start pulling your attention back, not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of self respect, everything begins to shift. You're no longer over giving. You're no longer trying to win her over. You're simply living your life, and she can feel that difference. Your energy changes. You become calmer, more grounded, less reactive. And that alone creates a new kind of attraction, because now instead of you chasing her attention, she has to earn yours. She starts noticing that you're not as easy to reach. She starts feeling that slight emotional gap where your constant presence used to be. And that gap, that's where her attraction starts rebuilding. She begins to lean in, to test the waters, to see if she can pull your focus back, not because you told her to, but because she feels it slipping away. And here's where most guys mess it up: they panic the moment she comes back. The second she shows a little interest, they go right back to over texting, over explaining, over investing. And just like that, the mystery disappears again, the balance is gone, and the cycle repeats. But when you truly understand this, you stay centered, you don't rush, you don't overact, you match her energy instead of overwhelming it. If she gives a little, you give a little. If she invests more, you open up more. It becomes a natural dance instead of a desperate chase. This is what creates emotional tension: the push and pull, the space between interactions, the feeling that she has to meet you halfway. And when she feels like she's earning your attention, instead of just receiving it for free, she values it more. She thinks about it more. She starts to crave it, because attraction isn't built by flooding someone with your presence. It's built by making your presence feel like something special, something not everyone gets access to. And the moment she feels that shift, she starts seeing you differently, not as someone who's always there, but as someone she doesn't want to lose. What really changes everything isn't silence by itself, it's the emotional control behind it. Because anyone can go quiet for a few hours or a few days, but if internally you're anxious, overthinking, checking your phone every minute, wondering what she's doing, you haven't actually detached. You're still reacting just without words. And she can feel that energy even from a distance. Real detachment is when your mood, your focus, your sense of self is no longer dependent on her actions. If she texts, you're good. If she doesn't, you're still good. If she's warm, you enjoy it. If she pulls back, you don't chase it. That level of calm, grounded control is what separates a man who's emotionally strong from one who's emotionally reactive. Because when you're reactive, she's in control of the emotional dynamic. Your behavior changes based on her mood. You give more when she pulls away. You get nervous when she's distant. You try harder when you feel her slipping. And that imbalance is what slowly kills attraction because it puts her in the dominant position emotionally. But when you're in control of yourself, everything flips. You're not trying to force outcomes. You're not trying to convince her to like you more. You're simply observing, responding, and staying centered in your own world. And that creates a powerful shift because now she can't predict you emotionally. She can't pull you in or push you away so easily. And here's where it gets interesting when she senses that she's no longer controlling your emotional state. She starts paying more attention. She starts testing, reaching out, doing small things to see if she can get a reaction from you. Not because she's playing games, but because she feels the change. The dynamic is no longer one sided. And instead of reacting like before, you remain steady. You don't jump at every message. You don't overanalyze every word. You don't let your emotions spike up and down based on her behavior. You stay consistent, calm, grounded. And that consistency is what builds respect because attraction isn't just about excitement, it's also about stability. A woman wants to feel that you're emotionally strong enough to not be shaken easily, that you're not going to lose yourself just because she's having a moment of distance or uncertainty. And when she feels that, it creates a deeper level of trust and curiosity at the same time. You become the one who's in control, not of her, but of yourself. And that's what makes you different from most men she's dealt with. You're not trying to hold on tighter when things feel uncertain. You're able to let go and still remain whole. Because the real power isn't in making her react, it's in no longer needing her to. There comes a moment when she realizes something has changed, and it's not something you said, it's something she feels. The attention that used to be constant is no longer there. The predictability she relied on is gone. And for the first time, she can't quite read you the way she used to. That's when her mind starts to fill in the blanks. At first, it's subtle. She notices you're taking longer to respond. You're not as available. You're not asking the same questions, not seeking the same validation. And she tells herself it's nothing. Maybe you're just busy. Maybe you're having a day. But as that pattern continues, the feeling grows stronger. Something is different. And this is where her imagination takes over because when people don't have clear answers, they create their own. She starts wondering if you've lost interest, if you've met someone else, if you're pulling away for good. And those thoughts create emotional tension inside her that didn't exist before. Not because you told her anything, but because she doesn't know anymore. Uncertainty is powerful. It makes people focus, it makes them analyze, it makes them feel. And when you remove the certainty she once had about you, you force her to confront the possibility of losing you. That's when your value starts to rise in her mind, not because you're doing more, but because she's feeling more. But here's the key: you don't break that tension. Most men get uncomfortable when they sense this shift. They feel her pulling closer again, asking questions, reaching out differently, and they rush to reassure her. They start explaining, overgiving, trying to bring things back to how they were. And the moment they do that, the mystery disappears. The tension collapses. She feels safe again, but not in an attractive way, in a predictable way. And slowly the excitement fades again. Instead, you allow her to sit in that uncertainty, not to hurt her, not to punish her, but to let her feelings naturally develop. You stay calm, you stay grounded, and you don't over explain your behavior. You let your actions speak, and you give her just enough to keep the connection alive without removing the mystery completely. And as she spends more time in that space, something shifts inside her. She starts investing emotionally. She starts thinking about you more, wondering about you more, missing you more, because now she's the one trying to understand you. She's the one trying to reconnect that certainty she lost. And that's the moment the dynamic truly flips. You're no longer the one chasing clarity. She is, because when your presence becomes uncertain, your absence becomes powerful. At this stage, something deeper begins to happen, not just curiosity, not just uncertainty, but emotional investment, because now she's no longer just reacting to your absence, she's feeling it. The space you created is no longer empty, it's filled with thoughts of you, questions about you, and emotions she can't easily ignore. This is where most men misunderstand the process. They think the goal is to make her chase, to make her anxious, to make her feel like she's losing control. But that mindset comes from ego, not understanding. The real shift is happening on a much deeper level. She's starting to value you more because she feels like she could actually lose you. When you were always there, always available, always consistent in giving your attention without limits, she didn't have to think about losing you. You were a constant, and people don't deeply appreciate what they believe will never go away. But now that certainty is gone. And in its place is the realization that you have your own life, your own direction, your own standards, and you're willing to walk away if those standards aren't met. That realization creates respect, and respect is the foundation of real attraction. Without it, everything else fades over time. But when she respects you, when she sees that you're not driven by neediness or fear, her behavior starts to change. She becomes more attentive, more responsive, more engaged, not because you asked her to, but because she feels the difference. And here's where emotional investment really builds. When she starts putting in effort to regain your attention, maybe she texts first more often. Maybe she tries to keep conversations going. Maybe she shows more interest in your life. These are not random actions. These are signs that she's now participating in the connection instead of just receiving from it. But the key is you don't reward everything instantly. You don't jump back into over giving just because she's making an effort. You stay balanced. You acknowledge her effort. You reciprocate appropriately, but you don't lose your center, because the moment you go back to over investing, the dynamic resets again. Instead, you allow her to continue investing. You give her space to come toward you. You let her earn deeper access to you over time. And as she does, her feelings grow stronger, because people value what they invest in. The more time, energy, and emotion she puts into you, the more important you become in her mind. This is no longer about playing it cool or acting distant. This is about maintaining a standard. You're showing through your behavior that your attention is valuable, that your time is limited, and that being part of your life is something that has to be earned, not assumed. And when she feels that, when she truly understands that you're not someone she can take for granted anymore, that's when her attraction deepens into something more powerful, something rooted in respect, effort, and genuine desire. Because in the end, people don't fight for what comes easy, they fight for what they don't want to lose. By the time you reach this stage, the biggest transformation isn't happening in her, it's happening in you. Because what started as a strategy, pulling back, giving space, focusing on yourself, has now become a mindset. You're no longer acting detached, you are detached, not in a cold or careless way, but in a grounded, self respecting way where your happiness no longer depends on anyone else's attention. And this is where most men finally understand the truth. They were never trying to get her back, they were trying to get themselves back. The version of themselves that had standards, that had purpose, that wasn't afraid to walk away. Because when you operate from that place, everything changes. You're no longer chasing validation, you're no longer trying to prove your worth, and you're no longer tolerating behavior that doesn't align with your values. Now, here's the paradox: this is often the moment she feels you the most. When you're no longer watching, no longer waiting, no longer emotionally hooked into every little thing she does, that's when her attention starts coming back stronger. She senses that you've truly moved on internally, that your focus is no longer centered on her, and that creates a powerful emotional pull. She may reach out more, she may try to reconnect, she may show a level of interest that wasn't there before. But the difference now is you're not dependent on it. You're not reacting out of excitement or fear. You're simply observing and deciding whether her presence adds value to your life. And that's the ultimate shift from wanting to be chosen to doing the choosing, because before you were hoping she would see your value. Now you already know your value. Before you were trying to keep her. Now you're deciding if she even deserves to stay. That change in perspective is everything because it puts you back in control, not of her feelings, but of your life. And whether she comes back or not almost becomes irrelevant, because you've built something stronger than attraction. You've built self respect. You've built emotional independence. You've built a mindset where you don't lose yourself trying to hold on to someone else. And ironically, that's what makes you most attractive. Not the silence, not the distance, not the mystery, but the fact that you're completely okay without her. Because when a man reaches that level, he doesn't chase, he attracts.